Hello everybody. As you may have seen in my last few posts, welcome to 19 for 20 episode 2. My friends have created a social justice outreach program to encourage conversation about the incredibly important issues that have finally grabbed our attention. But the truth is there is nothing new about them, which in many ways makes it all the more important that we have open and honest conversations about it. The issues of racism and its effects have been with us for hundreds of years. So each of us will be creating a video talking about a specific topic, and my topic is systemic racism, also known as institutional racism. And this does not mean that every individual member of the system is racist, but it does mean that because long-standing underlying assumptions and beliefs in the superiority of some and the inferiority of others have been practiced for so long that these attitudes and the actions they lead to have slowly creeped into the systems that we are all a part of. And in many cases, it means that even if we don't think we are racists in our beliefs, we may very well be unfairly discriminating against those around us for things they have zero control over. And that's their gender, their physical attributes, and the color of their skin. Specifically, there are certain structures and practices built into the systems of our society that create immense disadvantages for African American people. And I do want to highlight that I am not an expert on this. But I am a student working very hard at learning ways to be better, to do better, and to help the fight to end attitudes and practices of systemic racism faster. And I hope that our voices here can inspire some of you to become students of change as well. Honestly, systemic racism can be found everywhere around us, from our criminal justice system to unemployment rates, pay disparity, housing, healthcare, and the list goes on. And systemic racism makes it very difficult for people of color to live at peace, much less to thrive in our society. An example of this is our history of segregation. Many Americans think that segregation has gotten better since the 60s, but evidence shows that it actually hasn't. In Ilana Samuel's article about segregation, we see that for the majority of the 20th century, it was nearly impossible for people of color to get good paying jobs. African Americans were twice as likely to be unemployed as white workers, 6.4% versus 3.1%. And when they did find a job, they were getting paid much less than their white co-workers in the same positions. This then goes on to affect the quality and location of housing available to those people. And the majority of people of color trying to buy homes were refused loans, and those who did have the access to necessary funds were forbidden for purchasing homes in white-only neighborhoods, which of course were the nicer neighborhoods with better schools. Imagine trying to work your way to a better life and to build wealth under those circumstances. It's impossible. Resumes submitted in the application process with white-sounding names had a 50% higher chance of even getting through the door for an interview than names that sounded African American. So Jack gets the interview, Jamal gets the street. That's how systemic racism works. Touching briefly on the topic that Jason George spoke about, I read a great article written by Corey Collins entitled "What is White Privilege Really?" Where he explains the differences between racism and bias. He says that bias is a belief, racism is when that bias turns into action. Too often that action is the case where people of color are not hired at their jobs for which they are perfectly qualified for, or accused, arrested, and charged for other people's crimes when in truth they have done nothing wrong. So the big question, how can we help? First and foremost, we need to acknowledge that systemic racism does exist, and that we are all a part of a system that holds Black lives down, and that the problem needs to be addressed with conversation, with coming together, and with changes in national and local policies. We need to acknowledge our privilege, and then we need to use our privilege to help people of color when they are being disregarded, attacked, and that ranges from outright murder to microaggressions. We as a society need to take action, fight systemic racism, support African American businesses and communities, and vote. We need to elect government officials that make ending systemic racism a priority and make sure that none of us are supporting racist policies. We have to hold our politicians accountable. We have to become obsessed with ending racism, speak against it at every opportunity, at our workplace, at school, at home, at restaurants, at public transportation, on planes, wherever. I really hope that these 19 for 20 videos help create conversations between you and your peers to show how important these issues are and how aggressively they need to be addressed and ended. We would love to hear your thoughts. Barrett Doss is going to do a live on Instagram on Thursday, so make sure to tune in. In the meantime, I'm sending you all my love. Stay strong. Black Lives Matter. Bye.